My name is Ted Marmor. I'm a retired professor emeritus of political science and public policy at Yale University, and I'm a corresponding fellow of the British Academy, a role which brings me here for this conference. I think there are three. The most important one was the turnout among Hispanic voters in particularly central states like Virginia and Ohio and in Michigan. That's a demographic trend, but it was revealed in full colors in 2012. That's one. A second one was, frankly, the determination of the Obama machine, electoral machine, to turn out more generally and to monitor carefully and to skillfully induce voters with preferences for the Democrats to get out and vote. And the third, I suppose, central feature was the extraordinary combination of gender and racial considerations that tipped the balance towards Obama. In the case of women, I would say the extraordinary riskiness of the position taken by some Republican senatorial candidates were inflammatory, frankly. I don't need to go into them here, but you probably have read about the ones about the consequences of rape producing birth control and so on. And related to that is the idiosyncratic combination between Obama's mixed race background and the degree of support among Black Americans. I think I should explain, and I will explain more, particularly to a United Kingdom audience in which party discipline and the electoral results combine to produce a high probability of the winning group being able to do what it will. Not so in the United States. Two pieces of evidence illustrate that. One is the extent to which the US Congress, 2/3 of it, are not elected at the same time of a president. They don't know their allegiance or their seat to the president. And the second consideration, which is so important, is that party discipline, the whip, as you would call it here, is so much less powerful in the United States, partly because in the Congress and in the Senate, in the House of Representatives and the Senate, you have districts that are politically framed in ways that the president can neither take credit for getting people into office nor expect party loyalty from them or policy loyalty. The result is elections settle much less of what the policy manifesto will be in practice. A typical question from a British audience, assuming that the election will settle the future of a policy and call it a green light. Let me answer it by saying, if you're going to use metaphors of light, let's pick a yellow light. That is, be careful. Some things may happen. It's uncertain. The red light may go off on some things. In short, stalemate generally in American politics, which was returned with the election of 2012, will reappear in the implementation of the Obama healthcare reform. The reform itself, which is a set of patches on a patchwork of American medical care, will move in very undirected and uncoordinated ways. The fight will continue, and the key issue will be, will President Obama find it possible to give an account of why his reform was so important that he failed to do in the process of getting the reform? Absent that, many things will fall through the cracks. I suppose two reasons come to my mind, to be sure, as someone who knows a fair amount about the NHS and its politics, but is not a full-time specialist in it. I would say the key reason has to do with the scope of reform from Lansley, coming in the wake of 15 years of almost continuous reform within the NHS. And I would say exhaustion and irritation helped to explain a good deal of it. The NHS has been on a roller coaster of policy and managerial reform ever since I took took on the question of trying to be what it would be to be an expert in it. And so that seems to me the biggest reason. The second one is, although the themes that it introduces, GP centrality, for example, in the allocation of care, decentralization from the great London headquarters, or the split headquarters between London and the executive, all of that sounds good, except the frame itself of reform involved redoing a lot of people's lives. And in doing that, it also reshaped the conception of what the GPs were going to be, and particularly loaded on them administrative responsibilities, which many of them know they're not prepared to take on. So you have uncertainty about, for example, what consortia would be. I think those are the two big reasons. And the third, I suppose, would be just any time in the NHS when a big reform is proposed, there will be strong reactions, both positive and negative. So some of it is just normally to be expected. My strongest advice was not to take too seriously American advisors who have advice for it. But if it were a context in which there was idea sharing, I would say the most important thing an outsider could bring in the way of advice is the perspective of someone who has observed just how disturbing the rate of change in NHS policy has been ever since the Blair government. I think it's easy for the insider to be persuaded by the purposes of reform. The attentive outsider can pick up a few things that stand out in bold relief against their own background. And so what stands out for me would be the pace of administrative change and rechange that has sapped, I think, a lot of the enthusiasm for medical care administration in the NHS. I suppose the most important thing in both countries would be to reduce the rate of unemployment. If you wanted to have a direct hit on health status, we know that unemployment is bad for your health. Beyond that, I think it's probably important for both governments to keep separate the question of improving access to good health care from improving good health. That distinction is too easily blurred by a mistaken claim that good health care is the key to good population health. I'm not for a moment diminishing the importance of good health care, but it's a central thesis of my work that much of what makes good health care good does not show up in broad healthcare statistics. I'll just give you one illustration. Think about the extent to which my being reassured that a cancer that I had is not coming back, how significant that is, and how hard that would be to measure in any result.